Welcome to our latest Hoopscast. Pat Dooley and Kevin Brockway, the Gainesville Sun. We're going to talk a little bit about Florida's loss at Kentucky and preview the next game, of course, up in Athens against the Georgia Bulldogs. Kevin, that was one thing. I guess Florida's getting better. I'd forgotten how many games they got blown out in last year. They don't get blown out anymore. They just find ways to lose tight games.
Yeah, and certainly a game where you have a 6-point lead in the final 3 minutes, and really, it really again came down the free throw line. Three of 9 in the final 2. They had done a good job in the first half, but you have to start to wonder with this group about pressure and about rising to the occasion late in games, and I think that's kind of the next breakthrough for this team that they're going to have to figure out. Just how to show poise later in games and execute in late game situations, because on the road they've had trouble closing teams out.
Well, it's always tough on the road, and of course at a place like Kentucky where they were desperate, and according to Pat Forty, it's the loudest he'd ever heard Rupp Arena when Gatos was trying those free throws, but they must have worked.
Yeah, exactly. Obviously, I think there was a certain amount of, it was coming towards our end of the basket, and there was a certain amount of surprise. First, a lot of people thought the game was over.
Yeah.
And there was a certain amount of surprise that they made the call in that situation. Gatos' shot did come up, very short, but it didn't look like there was much contact at all from our vantage point. And you get a break like that, you got to take advantage of that opportunity, and certainly Gatos didn't do that. Now, on the other end of the floor, he did as good a job as he could defending Meeks, and Meeks just made an incredible shot.
Well, you think about it, Florida's lost 3 SEC games, 2 of them almost flukish, because Meeks' shot, he said after the game, he had a cramp in his left calf as he went up, and that's why he had to kind of double clutch, because he couldn't get up over Gatos to shoot, and he throws it in. Obviously what happened to South Carolina, you may never see again. So, they're close to being there, but they still, as you said, in both those games that they make free throws, it's not going to matter.
Yeah, and there were some other issues too with some rebounding late in the game. Dan Werner's reaching with a minute to go was kind of ill-advised, and that put Meeks on the free throw line, and he made 2 to give him a 1-point lead. So there were some other little mistakes too here and there, but I think
obviously
the main
the Walter
thing was,
Hodge stepping on a guy's arm.
Yeah, that was another situation, and he will be available to play Saturday, though. They called the league office on that, and but Florida had a chance too, because Patrick Patterson was out the final 9 minutes of the game.
They did. I just broke something down here. Okay.
But he was at the final with an ankle injury, and but give Kentucky credit. Some other people stepped up. Josh Harrelson stepped up for them. I thought Perry Stevenson played well, and Michael Porter even hit a few threes. So they got other contributions that they needed.
Robbie said Florida should be called the cure, because if you got problems, just play Florida. Now, here's Kentucky, can't get anybody else to score it. They play Florida, other guys score. But you got to put that one behind them, as obviously they go up to Athens, a team that's just miserable, awful, maybe one of the worst teams in the history of the SEC. But you better take care of business. This little mini stretch here, Kevin, at Georgia, Alabama at home, those are games they should win, and they better win.
Yeah, and I think even you can even extend that, even though Vanderbilt's playing a little better. You almost extend it to that, because the Final Four, you've got Tennessee and Kentucky at home, Mississippi State and LSU on the road. Right. So those are 4 teams that are definite SEC contenders. So if you take care of business during this little stretch, that maybe takes a little bit of the pressure off. But it begins Saturday at Georgia, and it's never easy to win in the SEC on the road, no matter where you are.
Except at Georgia, of course. We saw this team, and they aren't very good now. Of course, Dennis Felton's gone. I don't know if there's a lot of want to left in them. I watched their game against Tennessee. It was almost embarrassing. They can't score. So it's just a matter of, and the crowd's obviously not going to be much either. So it's just a matter of going up there, taking care of business, coming home with a win, and moving on. And I think this team will be able to shake off the loss. We saw them against South Carolina shake that one off. I don't think it's going to be a lasting effect, especially going into what is not a difficult environment. It has been in the past, but it certainly isn't now.
Yeah, I think the only level of trepidation you have is, you remember last year in February, interim coach, LSU, they came into the O'Connell Center, they were really struggling, they came in and they pulled out a win.
Spanked them, yeah.
So maybe you look at this as kind of a season saver for Georgia, that situation where they're going to rally around Pete Herman, but I don't see Georgia, even that LSU team last year had some pretty good talent.
They were good.
I don't see the Georgia team having nearly that level of talent.
Well, they had the one kid that was drafted.
Anthony Randolph,
Yep, Randolph. They had Marcus Thornton, who now is a second in the SEC. And so that was a good ball club, Tasman Mitchell. But they just couldn't. I think they had gotten to the point where they didn't want to play for Brady anymore. And then when Butch Pierre took over, it was fun again. I think in this case, it's almost like they just Georgia's not very good, and they don't really know where they're going right now. They're almost like sitting around like, let's get to next year and find out who our coach is going to be. So Florida needs to go up there and take care of business and get the 20th win, which is, I know it's going to come, but it's still somewhat significant.
Yeah, and I think too that certainly they've been pretty good this year. Florida has, winning the games that they're supposed to win. And as long as they keep on that pace, this is a winnable game. I don't know if many people would have expected them to go up in Rupp and win before the game. I certainly thought it was going to be a 10 to 15 point game, but they nearly pulled it out, and so I don't know if there's necessarily any shame losing in Rupp. I think there was just a frustration of it being a winnable game and having the chance at the end of the game to close it out, and they didn't close it out.
Well, they found ways to lose some tough games, but of course they're still have a fine record. They're still in good shape. Got to get things done this week, this Saturday, and then move on from there, and we'll see where they go. Kevin will be up in Athens covering the game, and we'll talk about that game on our next Hoopcast, as well as previewing Florida's game against Alabama. Until next time, Pat Dooley and Kevin Brockway, the Gainesville Sun, saying so long from the Sunshine State.
So long.